Jump point forming. Where? Have the scouts report. Outer fleet units prepare for engagement. No, sir. Jump point forming in front of us in the saddle port. Bogey is quite large, too. Estimate the size of a carrier. The Admiral looked over at his second-in-command. That's impossible. You can't de-jump into a Lagrange point. Even jumping out of one is a last resort. The main fleet was busy resupplying at the Lagrange point, or saddle point, just for such a reason. Spacefold drives could not be activated in the star's gravity well. Standard practice was to fly out with a conventional drive until the gravitational interference was small enough to allow a stable jump. It was possible, albeit very risky, to attempt to jump from a Lagrange point, where the star's gravitational pull was cancelled out by the mass of sufficiently sized gas giant. Such a point also made for good station keeping during a resupply of fleet units. Which is why the fleet was currently using one as a staging area for the next strike into Terran space. Their fleet was in shambles, and they were trying to evacuate their outer colonies. But no one tried to jump into a saddle point. The chance of the Spacefold collapsing on the mass of the ship was too high, and would be catastrophic to it and the surrounding space. All ships! Shields up and emergency burn away from the jump point now! Expedite! Expedite! Sir? Veer away from the point! We need to get as much mass between us and it! We are under attack! The tactical was showing chaos. A destroyer had just collided with a resupply carrier, but the smaller frigates were turning and prepping combat burns. But most larger ships were still powering up shields and attempting to turn away from the jump that was now visible as a strange blue glow. But it was too late. Brace! The Terran ship was trying to tear a hole in space and force its way through, but unlike a normal stable jump, space was fighting back. There was no way its drives could handle the load. The nose was visible but flat-faced, unlike the standard Terran warship prow. One of their large ore carriers. Telemetry showed what looked like a full load. Suddenly, the screen flashed. Tactical froze, and the bridge went dark. He could hear screaming from augmented crew who had not disconnected in time. It sounded like feedback from an old microphone. Status! Then, the shockwave hit. The inertial dampeners finally failed, and he was thrown into a bank, feeling something crack. The ore carrier's drives had failed, the artificial wormhole collapsing on the ship. Almost half of its mass was caught in the fail, and converted into hard radiation that hit the forward section. The bow and all its cargo vaporized into a fast-moving wave, sweeping out in all directions. To any observer, it would have looked like a neutron star burst. The fleet was hit by a fast-moving cloud of ionized atoms and hard radiation. Shields failed, drives and hulls melted. Smaller ships were completely vaporized, adding to the cloud. Inside the larger ships, the dampers failed, and the internal temperature skyrocketed, baking any organics alive and setting off secondary explosions. The ones that had been able to turn away in time and offer the smallest silhouette were the luckiest. The stern and all the drive mass took the brunt of the blast, large components melting and buckling. The Admiral groaned. He was drifting in darkness, one hand instinctively gripping a railing. Artificial gravity had failed, mercifully, as he could feel bones grating as he moved one leg. Around him, he could hear faint groaning and muffled cries. The acrid smell of blood filled the air. He coughed, feeling something great. Status report! Restoring backup power now. Sir. Emergency lights flickered on, and a faint whine could be heard. Around him, screens flickered on, a lot of them showing red. Too much red. Tactical? Working on it. In the center of the bridge, the holodisplay flickered to life and booted for its sequence. A floating body warping one side. It was his second-in-command. No neck should bend like that. Around him, he heard crew giving status reports as life came back to the bridge. Tactical blipped and showed him his fleet, or what was left of it. A few larger ships still showed active but blinked red. A number of inert hulls were tagged as unknown. They had been lucky. A troop carrier had moved between them and the jump point, shielding them from some of the blast. but not enough. He carefully pulled himself to his chair and gripped his one arm. "Ship status?" "No telemetry from the drive section. Multiple stress warnings from the superstructure. Emergency crews report melted bulkhead hatches and rising temperatures. They're abandoning any rescue attempts and falling back. They report banging in some sections. We are in a slow tumble. The helm is using altitude thrusters to stabilize it, but there seems to be outgassing. Damage control working on containing it." He winced. The drive was probably gone, and the ship's back broken. Any trapped crew would die as the heat bleeds through. He brought up the ship overview. "The fleet?" "Telemetry only from most ships. The ones reporting in have suffered heavy damage. We are getting back feed from the outer units. Imagery online now." Tactical was replaced by a live feed from a nearby picket ship. It showed the flash in the center of the fleet, and then a wave rolling outwards, slamming into larger vessels and vaporizing smaller ones. A resupply ship trying to burn off the Ecliptic suddenly had its drive wink out as the blast wave hit. The chaos in multispectral and false color was horrifying. As he watched, the approaching wave hit, and the display cut out. "Ships report damage, but nothing they can't handle. The blast wave is dissipating fast, but the radiation pulse will wipe out any unshielded lifeforms in the inner system. Nearby units moving in to render assistance." It was a good thing this was an unsettled system. He winced, partly from a medic injecting painkillers, and partly from the mental image of this happening in a colonized system. "Contact! Jump points forming! Multiple jump points being reported by the outer fleet." Tactical zoomed out, and he could see the distinctive Terran drive signatures. More than the outer fleet could handle. "We have an open radio channel from one jump point. Put it on." A woman's clipped voice. "We came to you with open arms. We told you of our rules of war. You ignored all of that. There was a reason why we had them." "Outer units prepare for engagement. Any active ships to burn out and engage." "Jump point forming! Another one in the settle point! Brace!" He looked at the young medic next to him. "I'm sorry." The ship slammed sideways.